So I guess we
Yes,
will
we can
start
hear
in
you.
2 minutes to let more people join us. Okay, stay
Yeah, no
tuned.
problem.
Okay.
Why my video is muted?
Hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you very clear.
Yeah, wonderful. So it is 4:05, and I guess we start now. So today we're going to discuss youth policy through the lens of cross-regional approach. Because today we have three wonderful speakers from three different regions, and my dear speakers, please turn on the videos. Okay, so now when we made up this format, we thought that it can be very thought-provoking, because globalization is definitely changing our world, but it is unifying it. But still, there are many things that are specific to this or that region. And just a short example, in Europe, population is aging, while in Asia and in North Africa, we know that youth population comprises about like a huge share of population. So the challenges are different, and conditions are different, and that's why the youth policy should be different. And so today, future team guests are three wonderful people who are involved in implementation of this youth policy in three different regions in Europe, in Asia, and in North Africa. And please kindly meet our first speaker, ladies first. So it is Andrea Ugrinovska. She is chair of the Advisory Council on Youth of Council of Europe. For many years, she was involved in different youth movements, so she has such a rich experience in this sphere. It's very nice to meet you, Andrea. So what are your current functions you perform, or could you please add something to this introduction?
Yes, absolutely. And hi to everyone who's with us today. It really is a pleasure for me to join you and to also learn more about Future Team. I haven't been involved with your work at all, and I have a feeling it's quite substantial. So I'm very humbled and excited to be at this panel and to also take the opportunity to learn myself as well. Otherwise, as you said, you almost ticked all the boxes. I'm Andrea. I originally come from North Macedonia, although I've been living and working in London, the United Kingdom, for a while now. I kind of started my journey through student organizations in Macedonia and participating in protest movements, in revolutions, etc. And then from there, I moved to the National Youth Council of Macedonia. I've been also engaged with a lot of international, both political and civic organizations, and then I'm currently working for the British Youth Council of the UK. So I think I have both the national perspective towards national policy making, but also the global perspective and the importance of global cooperation. Otherwise, in my capacity here, I've been recently appointed as a chair of the Advisory Council on Youth of the Council of Europe. So for those who don't know, the Council of Europe is an institution composing of 47 member states which belong to the European continent. So it's essentially the institution predecessing the European Union. As such, we work on issues such as democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. The institution has a lot of attention devoted to youth and supporting young people, and thus my position and my role comes in. So we have a body that's called the Advisory Council on Youth of the Council of Europe that participates in a meaningful co-management, ensuring that a youth perspective is always present when the institution does policy making, which is essentially applicable to all member states in Europe. So that's in short, but I'll go more in detail of what we exactly do across the other questions that we have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Andrea. So our second speaker today is Sahatul Hassan from Pakistan. He is the founder of Youth Advocacy Network, and for six last years, he has been representing Pakistani youth in the United Nations. Could you please share with us some interesting facts about like your journey, how you arrived to this point, like being a change maker in this sphere of youth policy?
First of all, I would like to
thank to you and the team of the Future Team for organizing this wonderful event, and of course, distinguished guests, specifically speaking from different regions. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And about this, your question, yes, we started this organization named Youth Advocacy Network, and because in particularly in South Asia, we know like this huge population. If you look at India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, I mean, in India, we have more than 1.5 approximately around that billion people. And out of that, we have a huge number of young people. Same here in Pakistan, we have 200 million population. And out of that, we have more than 64% young people. But unfortunately, in developing nations, in developing countries, the youth, of course, is a center point. But unfortunately, when it comes to their representation, their well-being, it's usually not on the front foot. So the purpose of the Youth Advocacy Network, and of course our struggle was to make sure that young people's voices are heard at policy level, because we believe that as an NGO we may be not able to cover all like this huge population, but maybe the government, which has authority, which has institution, which has manpower, which has authority, they can definitely reach to everybody within the country. So that was the reason behind that we focused on the policies, that we need to change the policy. Rather, it's education policy, it's youth policy, it's health policy, whatever, where the young people are directly engaged or linked with. So that was the purpose behind, and the journey is not easy. Because we, the young people, I would also like to highlight here, and of course we do that in front of the our parliamentarians, our policy makers and decision makers, that young people are usually taken for granted, rather if they are talking about their rights, rather if they are talking about their work within their constituency. So it was quite difficult to actually convince, and I mean, I'm talking about now particularly in Pakistani context, that government has to take young people on board, rather it's United Nations or whatsoever other institution which where Pakistan represents officially. So it was difficult, but of course it was not impossible, and we successfully convinced the government officials that, look, if we have more than 64% young population, which is under the age of 30 years, with the definition that we do have in our policies. At the same time, I would talk maybe later about that, how youth policies are working in this region, particularly in my country and in the region of South Asia. But before that, I would specifically would like to highlight that now the young people in South Asia, they are also now on one platform. It's called SAARC Youth Platform, which is South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation, which is a regional organization like European Union in Europe. We do have SAARC, but unfortunately it's not very active. So the purpose of this platform is to actually push the governments of SAARC region to be more active and to work for the welfare and sustainable development.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. So the third speaker comes from Egypt, Farag Ezeleddin. He is executive assistant of Egyptian Youth of Today. So as far as I understand, the major field of the organization is personal youth development. So could you please comment on this?
Hi all. First, I would thank Future Team for giving me this opportunity. Youth is an Egyptian platform that aims to provide students with the easiest passes for their personal and mental development. We give that student chance to allow and meet and gain the best of internship opportunities, and also get their opportunities with reputable and well-known companies. In their internships, they be able to gain much experience and be ready for get a work after graduation. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. So we may see that we have three different perspectives from three very qualified people in the sphere of youth policies. So let's move on to the questions that we're going to discuss. So please, while answering the questions, try to concentrate on the regional context, on some regional specifics, so that we can compare and find something similar, or noted that there are only differences. And the first question will be, what are the main challenges young people face in the region? So please be short, just 2 or 3 minutes, and it would be great if we can make a short list of that challenges that you find the most relevant for your region, and I will be writing them down. Okay. Okay, Andrea, could you please be the first?
Yes, I would love that. Okay, so when it comes to challenges for the whole of Europe, I mean, it's already a challenge to try to put together the challenges for Europe. And I don't think that they will be much different than what the others will say. And even though there is a difference in the population, as you said, and in the development of policy in the regions, etc., I think the challenges remain more or less the same, or that's what I expect to see, but let's see. So, I think it's important to recognize that young people in Europe have a lot of opportunities from a lot of different sides as well, including in education, mobility, paid internships, we have Erasmus, etc. So Europe is a good continent for young people. It takes care of them in all the possible ways it can. However, there are still lots of gaps in terms of things that can be done. That's the reason for me being here, and we still can see challenges that they're facing. So I think that discrimination remains one of the top challenges that we can see for young people also in Europe. I mean, being led by the Black Lives Movement, which is happening right now in the US, that is being reflected in Europe as well. And even though our context is a bit different, we do still have issues with how we treat marginalized and minority groups and how we integrate them in society. And this is spilled over to our young people as well, who are not a heterogeneous group. We also see quite a growing trend in terms of threatening pluralistic democracies. So young people, and as well with the Council of Europe, tend to believe in democracy. They have lots of faith in it, and they want to put the effort to ensure that democracies function well. But with the leaders being elected in certain countries around Europe, that is being put under very high threat, which is threatening then all the other challenges that young people are facing. Mental health seems to be a growing one, especially with the pandemic. I think we've discovered that it's not something to take lightly. And depending on which parts of Europe, we can see more interest in the topic of mental health, but it's definitely growing. Climate change remains almost more or less a global issue. I would be surprised if one of my co-speakers doesn't mention it. It's definitely something that young people have occupied as a theme together, and they have made it one of the top priorities on their agenda globally. In Europe, something specific in Europe was the large influx of refugees we received and the way they were treated, and especially young people being very active supporters and partners in terms of receiving refugees and offering them the support and integration in life in Europe. But we've also seen a lot of criticism and a lot of opposition from, as I said, illiberal democracies and other partners. Peace building and violent conflict still remains an issue for us in the region, not in the whole region, but especially in the eastern one. So it's something that is also high on the agenda. We're working a lot with Youth, Peace and Security, trying to see how we can make the recommendation relevant and implementable for the European region as well. Beyond that, we also see a lot of protests where young people engage. So young people defending their rights and defending democracies, going out on the streets and being on the front line in terms of being attacked. Artificial intelligence keeps on creeping into our lives. So it's another topic that we're interested in exploring. And I think there's a very large lack of awareness for it. So it might not be perceived as a challenge, but the way these algorithms are being created, they do pose a challenge for young people and for upcoming generations. Unpaid internship remains being a challenge in the region, even though we've tackled it in a few countries who have successfully committed to banning unpaid internships forever. So we use those successes and case studies to further encourage other countries in Europe to ban unpaid internships. And then the last thing is that we have the EU non-EU divide. So we're constantly looking at how we can support countries who are in the neighborhood of the EU or seeking EU integration to start living these values. I mean, the divide starts getting more and more noticeable with, as I said, with the threat to pluralistic democracies and to what is the direction that this region seems to be taking in terms of some sort of a political orientation. So yeah, that's my summary.
Thank you so much. You have a very great structure of your speech, so it's very easy to write something down from what you're talking about. Okay, so Farag, what is your perspective? What are the main challenges North Africa and Egypt faces today?
I think we face two main problems in South Africa. First, the unemployment fare. It's the rate of unemployment in North Africa is about 30%, That's a big percentage. Most of youth graduate and find themselves no work. There is any work change. So I think it's an important issue. It's the most important issue in all countries because it's a fundamental right for anyone to find the job and give them the chance to earn money. The second problem is the poverty. The poverty rate that face about 30 to 70% of North Africa. It's a very bad problem because it's some kind gives make youth think of immigration and find other chances in other countries. They can't live in such environment. So we in youth always try to fix this problem and make them found suitable chances. That's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, Sahat, what is your opinion concerning the challenges Pakistani youth and other Asian countries face?
Yes, I would agree with my colleagues the issues they have mentioned already, but I would just add in terms of the regional issues that young people are facing, and particularly that is like one of them is the major one is gender equality, specifically when it comes to women and girls, and within that the early age child and forced marriages is one of the major issues that young people are facing. Then of course education issues, because we do have huge population and the institutions are not as strengthened that they could cover everyone, and of course there is huge systematic discrimination within this whole region. It's not only Pakistan or India or other countries, but in the whole region we see like if you have a privileged background, if you have a privileged caste system and your the nationality, then you have different privileges within the country. And then of course I would specifically would like to mention the climate change here, because in our countries, in whole region, we see huge floods which are having very serious and specific impacts on young people, specifically women and girls in particular. So that is one of the major issues that we are facing in overall in our region. The last issue that I feel is around youth policies, because the youth policies that we do have, we do not have, like in Pakistan, I would like to say, and of course in India as well, as per our experience, but in some countries they do have different structures, like in Sri Lanka or in Nepal. In Pakistan and India, we do not have a central or national level youth policy. We have regional, like we do have in Pakistan, we have provinces, and in India, they have states. So they have regional youth policies, like same in Pakistan, but not the national level. So there is no central, how to say, so I mean, a guideline that where young people should go on. It is good in some contexts, but it's not good as well at the same time, because then there is no uniformity within this whole system, because every state have different resources. And then of course, when it comes to youth policy, they have other policies attached with it. For example, in our context, it's more about sports policies instead of the youth policy, really. So these are some of the major challenges. And before I end, I would also like to mention after this pandemic, and of course during this pandemic, the situation of the economy, and of course the jobs for young people are also, the spaces are also being shrinked. And out of that, of course, women and girls are more mostly affected, because already being patriarchal societies, we prefer men on women on everything. So I think that is also one of the perspective that we need to think about as a regional level, and of course at national level.
Okay, thank you so much, Sahat. So I have one clarification question to Andrea. So our colleagues mentioned two issues that I didn't notice in your speech. It is unemployment and gender equality. So do you think that these two challenges are not so much relevant to Europe anymore? To what extent?
Yeah. Very good question. I think when I was mentioning discrimination, this is what I meant. I meant gender equality. I meant respect towards LGBTQI. I meant Roma inclusion. I meant national minorities. I meant people with disabilities. So this is something that we take very, very this is something we put at the core of our work with the Council of Europe. We have a whole strategic priority focusing only on that. So I don't think that we're doing it much better in Europe and that it's not an issue anymore. I think it will be something that's going to remain lingering on until we get to a point in society where everyone feels like they're an integral part of it, which is a very challenging quest on its own. In terms of employment, it absolutely is. I think one of the reasons I didn't mention it is because we don't work on it in the Council of Europe. In Europe, employment still remains to be a very, very national issue. So approaching it from a kind of intergovernmental or an international perspective can be quite challenging. There's something that we have in Europe that's called the Youth Guarantee, which is initiated by the European Union. And it's essentially a scheme that offers countries to, it's kind of a scheme that offers matched jobs for people who are out of employment, education, or training, and it's in place to ensure that this transition is easier. So definitely still a challenge, although as I said, for example, we've won fights in a lot of countries who have committed to banning unpaid internship. I include that in employment as well. So unpaid internship, I think are the biggest threat to employment for young people worldwide. But yeah, employment remains being a challenge for young people in Europe as well.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Okay, so let's move on to the second question. So it is like working with the youth and being the youth yourselves. Maybe you've noticed some kind of new trends in like work-life balance, lifestyle, or something that makes the current youth generation somehow different from the previous one. So when we made up this question, we were thinking about Russian example. So you know, our parents' generation used to save up money for buying some property, to buy a car or to buy a flat. So the context was very unstable. It was like on a very harsh economic situation when the Soviet Union collapsed, and kind of your own property was a kind of guarantee for people. But according to the latest statistics, current generation, my generation, is absolutely different. So the logic is absolutely different. We tend to save up money for traveling, for self-development, for adventures, for education, and we prefer car sharing or renting a flat. So preferences differ. And so maybe you noticed some kind of these trends in your countries. So it could be very interesting, I guess, to check whether the trends are the same. Okay, so Farag, maybe we'll start with you this time.
Hello. I think simply we are the generation of social media. It's make our lives different a lot about the older generations. It's make the world a small country. We can saw each other. We can contact with another cultures. We know each other. You said we can save money to travel. We travel because of social media. The preference different because of social media. We saw different things. We know there is another places we could visit. We know there is another places we could learn and know about other cultures. Everything is easy. So I think all what we live now is because of social media. Second thing, I think the esports. The esports is control the world right now. We can now play with each other in another countries. We can do everything, do every game in our ways. So I think so. There is that's the main point. We can different about the old generations. Also, junk food. Junk food is now different about about older, there is no junk food. We now is also is totally depending on junk food. We eat junk food morning, evening, anytime. I think this. I think also we have now some kind of gender equality in some countries of the world. We make a progress in this case. That's all.
Thank you so much. Okay, Sahat.
Yes, I think one of the major difference that we can see within our generations is technology. I think like my parents, even they are not able to use the smartphones. I mean, of course they do use, but they really have to struggle that how it works and all. And of course, it's not only about phone. It's also about further like the technology that how it works today. So I think one is like information IT, information and technology, which is making a huge difference between the generations at this point of time. At the same time, now we have more I mean, what I would feel like isolation, kind of like the mental issues or the mental health, what mentioned by my colleague previously in previous time, that the young people have now different kind of mental issues that we were never having before. Because now they are more attached to, I mean, specifically now during this pandemic, screen time is very high for children and young people because there is education is on screen, their everything is on screen. So now they're having a different kind of issues, not only about their mental health, but also because it's directly linked to their physical health as well. This is second, and the third one is if we look around, the sports thing. So in our previous generation, it was more physical sports, but now we also see the e-sports, like the gaming and all these kind of, and young people are very much into that. I mean, even maybe I am not into that, but I know my younger brothers and my younger siblings or the other young people who are younger than me, they are very much into that. So these kind of, I mean, major things are having a difference between previous generation and this generation. But at the same time, there is another social issue that we have seen within our region, is the gap between the rural and the urban sides within our region in particular. Even when I go to my village, my parents' place, over there, they even do not have a 3G, frankly speaking, which is like unbelievable for the people living in the cities. So that is also, I mean, the difference within the structure. I mean, at the same time, in one city, you do have a different kind of technology, but at the same time, in other cities, you do not have at all any kind of information technology or this kind of services. So I feel these kind of, these are like major issues that we feel in this region.
Okay, thank you so much. So guys, I noted that many of you are asking some questions, so please do not worry, we see them. So we will answer to them at the very end after we cover like the main things, okay? So you may keep on asking the questions in the chat. Okay, Andrea?
Yes, so I think that my co-speakers have included a lot of the things that I'm going to mention, so I'll make this short from my side. I think definitely you're right that young people are have very different priorities to maybe what our parents did back in the time. And I think that I recommend everyone having a look at the TV show The Politician on Netflix, which in the last season portrays this very, very well in terms of what young people want and how they're not chasing luxury anymore as maybe previous generations did, how they have different priorities. Just portrays all of that very well. But in a nutshell, I think that young people of this generation, millennials and Gen Zers, are much more idealistic in terms of what they want to see from the world, and they're not ready to give that up under any condition. Their priorities are different. I see them as innovators. I think that many young people of this generation, whenever they see a problem, they tend to fix it. And I think social entrepreneurship is the biggest reflection of this. I think it's the first time that we see a mix of more of kind of like the social NGO work with the businesses, which I find that one of the carriers of the future world. I think social entrepreneurship is something that I lay a lot of faith in, and that belongs to this generation. I think our generation is also all about holding those in power accountable, and we know how to do it, and we don't back from that. So that means that we're ready to protest, we're ready to campaign, advocate for the things we believe in an uncompromised way. However, we are also overwhelmed. With social media, we get access to much more information than we used to. And this, for people who work in the sector, this can be overwhelming, and it can make a lot of us feel powerless, and it can make us feel like we don't know how to position ourselves in causes that we want to be allies in. And I think that we saw that happening with the Black Lives Matter movement in Europe, where a lot of white people, such as myself, were not sure how to be an ally to the movement, even though they wanted to contribute. So, and this feeling tends to overwhelm. We're also very fast-paced, which means that we want solutions and we want them now. And many times we're impatient and we're not ready to wait for the change to happen, but actually we want to see it from today until tomorrow. And which is why I also think that it's important for this generation to, and especially for us working in this field, once we get to certain high places where our voice is really heard from all the relevant stakeholders, to remember why we started. So beyond all the feelings of overwhelmness, to always keep our true core intention at heart, even when it tends to get foggy and we're not sure whether the work we're doing makes any change, and when we feel tired and when we don't see results of our work. I think that most of us are also angry. And I think that we're also seeing a kind of a shift from young people feeling extremely excluded from generally public life, from policy making, being excluded from having a voice in the decisions that affect their lives, towards young people being seen in some countries in Europe now as a resource. So working with young people to improve the conditions of today, and in that ensuring that there is a knowledge transfer, so when our generation takes over, it's also ready. So I think those are some of the life trends that I see in Europe for our generation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Farag, Sahad, do you agree with Andrea? Have you noticed something of this kind in Asia and in Africa? Maybe some similarities or differences, like about being angry. What I have in mind is just that events of the Arab Spring that we noticed just 10 years ago. So youth is very politicized, right? And they want to have their rights. So do you see this trend in your countries?
Yes, I would agree on that, but at the same time, I would say like it is not only that young people are angry, but at the same time, like how social media is being used to use young people actually for the particular agendas that I would say, and it's definitely one of the major issues. And I would also agree with the other points mentioned by Andrea on like for example, even movements where sometimes like in Pakistan we do have a huge systematic discrimination against the religious minorities, and sometimes it's very difficult for us to actually see like how we can contribute. Of course we can influence maybe the politicians and the decision makers, but at the same time when it comes to really, I mean the sharing the perspective of that particular group is difficult to actually present in front of other people on behalf of them. So I agree most of her points.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Farag, do you have something to add?
Yes, I think youth is very angry. That's right. In Egypt, we have two revolutions in just 2 years. It's a big sign that everything
Something is wrong with your network connection?
Change. Do you hear me now?
Oh, almost. Say something. Does it work? Okay, we can keep on talking about the third question, and you can proceed on this question afterwards. Okay, so the next question is about the state role in the youth policy. So now we know that in many countries there are some special agencies, even ministries who are responsible for implementing some kind of strategies in the youth policy. But what do you think? And you know most you know these strategies. You know how the government works in this field. So what are the most successful strategies, and how efficient is the state role in the youth policy? What do you think? Okay, Andrea.
Yeah. So I really enjoy this question because this touches very much in the heart of what we do also in the Council of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate it. I think that there are many ways a state and public authorities can contribute towards developing youth policy better and supporting youth empowerment, supporting young people as well. However, I think that any intervention in any country is very context specific. So I'll list some of the things that could be done, but I want everyone to know that using other countries as examples is a very good starting point, and I think we should always resort to it. We should be learning from each other because something that's worked in one country will most likely work in another. But this is not about copy-pasting models. This is about seeing what works in one country and then trying to adapt that in the context that we operate in. And this is a very key. It's very important because I think that we've seen very often how dry copy-pasted models just don't work in two different countries. So I think that one of the things and the most obvious thing that a country can do for young people is create a youth law. So I know that in Macedonia, we for a very long time, we didn't have one. And because the country is so backward when it comes to youth policy development, the only way we could fast track and get on the same pace with other European countries was to actually create a youth law. The youth law tackles a lot of issues connected to employment, connected to youth participation, and connected to youth information. So it includes everything at once. However, I think that a lot of people have different opinions when it comes to youth law, and you will hear a lot of people coming from different countries actually making the case that youth law would not work in their country, and that's absolutely fine because, as I said, it works in Macedonia. It doesn't mean that it would work everywhere else. The second thing is co-decision making systems. So I think that governments, the best thing that they can do is to show that they care for its young people by giving them an equal seat at the table. So I think that there are two or three different strands when you talk about youth participation. It can be non-existent, so governments can not even recognize the need to bring young people in the room or hear their voice or have them included in one way, which is, I think, the worst case scenario. The second case scenario is governments bringing young people in, but in a very tokenistic manner. So bringing them in, hearing what they have to say, but actually not including it in the policies that they're deriving, or not including it in any potential decision that has come out from this meeting or engagement. So, and we like to fight a lot against tokenism because we see it as a dangerous side effect of youth participation. And then I think another one is creating a space for youth candidates. So this is a bit more for political parties, which I still see them as public entities, but ensuring that in the parliamentary list or in the local elections, there's always a decent quota or decent amount of youth candidates. Mayors could always appoint a youth mayor that would shadow them and that would ensure that their perspective is taken into consideration. We also tend to fight a lot for a UN Youth Delegate program. So UN Youth Delegate programs ensure that every UN delegation from a country has a young person in it and then the youth perspective being reflected. I think that countries could, for example, ban unpaid internships. They do have the power to do that. They could be enabling digital participation. So young people, our generation and then the generation that's coming after us, well, we are more or less digital natives, which means that for us, it's very easy to navigate a digital environment and to participate digitally. And this is the digital divide that we see with other generations as well. However, when governments tend to how they say this, tend to compromise and enable some of their content and participation mechanisms digitally, then young people do tend to participate in larger numbers as well. We also have youth parliaments. So in some countries, for example, in the UK, the youth parliament is almost an integral part of Westminster, of the regular parliament, and youth parliaments feed into the work of the regular parliaments. And then we also have recognition and support of national youth councils, which are the first entry point for young people in terms of representing them as a one voice on a national level. So countries can recognize them and they can offer them the financial support they need. In the Council of Europe, which is an intergovernmental organization, we draft recommendations, which means that we offer these recommendations to all the member states that we work with in terms of improving certain aspects of youth policy. So we have recommendations on supporting young refugees in their transition to adulthood, supporting young people to access their rights, supporting young people in disadvantaged neighborhoods, and the list goes on and on. But we usually identify, so now we're drafting a recommendation on shrinking civic spaces. So we try to identify a trend or an issue for young people at that given time, and then we develop a recommendation that essentially guides member states in terms of how they can tackle the chosen topic. And the powerful thing with these recommendations is that they're applicable to everyone in Europe, so everyone in Europe can use them. And then also once every 5 years, we do reviews, which means we hold countries accountable on how they implement these things. We have the European Youth Foundation as part of the Council of Europe, which is a foundation that offers direct funding to international and local youth organizations. And we also do policy missions. So any country in Europe can kind of contract us to come and to hold a policy mission in the country, depending on the topic they have. Usually they call us for national youth strategy or for national youth laws, for more policy related matters, but we can come and we can offer that advice as well. And then the last thing is just meaningful participation and co-management. So something that we pride ourselves very much in the Council of Europe is we have a co-management system. So that means that 30 activists from the Advisory Council, where I chair, and 47 representatives of youth ministries of the member states of the Council of Europe, we come together 2 times per year for our statutory meetings, and we co-decide on the main priorities and budget of the youth department of the Council of Europe. And the way we co-decide is through the process of co-management. That means that each person that sits on the joint council has an equal vote. So whether it's me as a youth activist or it's the representative of the French youth ministry, we both have the same voice. So we work on the principle of consensus, and then if one single person in that room disagrees with the decision that we want to take, then that decision is not going to move forward. And this is what we mean when we say meaningful youth participation. It's the only way it can happen. Young people need to be put on an equal, and I cannot underline and highlight this enough, equal position with the decision makers to influence the decision that essentially affect their lives.
Thank you so much, Andrea. So the most important thing that you mentioned is that youth participation in making decisions is just a major idea of youth empowerment. So without that, nothing makes sense. So while answering to this question, Farag and Sahad, please, could you please somehow evaluate the situation in your countries and in your regions? So there are 3 possible models, not recognized the need for youth to participate in policy making and decision making, bringing them in, but mostly ignoring their ideas and decisions, and finally trying to somehow incorporate them in the in elaborating strategies. So could you please elaborate on this as well while answering? Okay, Sahad.
Yes, I think that is one of the major issues in our region. First of all, as I mentioned, like young people are not being considered as a main stakeholder, even though if we look at the population, we are in majority. But unfortunately, when it comes to the decision-making table, we can see hardly even a single person on the real decision-making tables. And even if it is there, sometimes it's like tokenism, like it's not actually to participate or to really, as mentioned by a fellow colleague, that the really meaningful youth participation is the key. Otherwise there is no sense to have a young person just to having a face there in the table. At the same time, as I mentioned earlier, that a youth policy is not a standalone subject. I mean, I'm very happy to know that there's a youth law in Macedonia, but unfortunately in our region overall, and of course in countries, the youth policy and the youth, I mean, we do not have law, but policy is attached with 3, I mean, I would talk about Pakistan. It's not just a youth ministry we do have, it's a Ministry of Sports, Archaeology, Tourism, and Youth Affairs. Like you can see, like, and the youth is the last subject within that whole ministry, within one state I'm talking about, and the same in other states within. And as I mentioned, like there is no national level youth policy in Pakistan. So within even this state level, like in the provinces, we have this policy covered by other issues of the province. And it's the last one, the least interested. I would also support the point mentioned by her that the youth participation have to come through law. Like I remember in the previous government, they introduced a law that there should be at least one young person under the age of 25 who should be elected as a member of the of union councils, and of course it can go on further at the district level and at the provincial level. But unfortunately, again, the next government comes in and they do remove that law, and they come up with something else which doesn't make any sense. So again, when I'm talking about Pakistan, this is the Pakistani example, and of course it's same more or less in other countries of the region. Lastly, I think when about your question in particular, that how the governments are actually taking care of the youth subject when it comes to their own issues. Unfortunately, even at that point, the young people are not being consulted. For example, even if it's about youth employment, it's sometimes some like from some other generation, some person studied from ABCD, having experience of 50 years, he or she comes up and gives the policy to the government that, okay, you should implement this one. That is unfortunate in our region. So I feel that without having a real consultation and the feedback from young people, it would be very difficult for our region and of course for my country to progress in terms of youth empowerment.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Farag.
From this point, I think any state should create programs that help the youth. Okay, do you hear me?
Yeah, it's okay.
I think any state should create programs that help the young people to express their opinion and listen for ideas. I think also they should contribute them in the decision making. For this point, we in Egypt, the president launched the presidential program launched the presidential program for young people to prepare them to leadership. It's the program graduates take part in the country. They have ability to take the decisions and share on it. I think we in Egypt have an improvement in the youth. There is in 2016 the youth year of Egypt. We have many youth forums. We now the youth take a chance to express their opinions. We have a chance to say our ideas, to contribute it with the country, and they listen to us and they take it seriously. That's it in Egypt.
Yeah, that's great, Faraga. So they even take it into consideration. That's wonderful. So actually, in order to update you about the situation in Russia, so currently maybe you've heard that we somehow a little bit changed our constitution, added some new points, and one of the points that was included in the constitution was a point about the youth policy. And right now we have that law draft that is going to be submitted to the legislative body. And so right now we will have this youth law that is going to somehow determine the main directions for the youth policy to create this environment for youth development. So this is the situation in Russia, and the very important point here is that that law was created by the youth themselves. So some NGOs and some state agencies gathered in order to elaborate the right structure and right content of that law. So this is the situation in Russia. Okay, so speaking about the next question. So what are the central strategies, actions your organizations take as part of implementing youth policies? So we mostly understood how it works for Andrea. So Andrea, for you, I have a special question about volunteering activities. So you mostly, as far as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't mention volunteering activities. So do you somehow integrate this direction in the youth policy, or it is something independent, like an independent agency is responsible for that? And do you think that volunteering is a good way to involve more young people in a kind of civil participation?
This one was for me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I didn't mention volunteering. I think volunteering is a really tricky one because it's something that has started booming very much with our generation in terms of, you know, feeling that we have some extra time that we could, that it's not that good doesn't always come from donating funds, or it doesn't always come from material, but it also comes by donating out our time and our skills. I think, however, there is a dangerous trend that's also closely linked to mental health and to overload and to not knowing when to stop. So I think one of the most important thing when working with volunteers, or when you're a volunteer yourself, is to also know when to take a break and when to stop. And this is very important for us in the Advisory Council on Youth, because we all come there with usually either studying full-time or working full-time or doing both. And then our job in Advisory Council is as an extra job, it's just that it's not being paid. And we do it because we're very passionate about it. And I think volunteering has that element that, because it's not extrinsically motivated, we tend to invest quite a lot of ourselves in it, because it really comes from the purest of our heart. But the more and more I work with volunteers, the more and more I see them burnt out. I think that I still haven't met a volunteer that knows when to say stop and when to back off. We usually tend to really push that limit. So in doing that, I think that it's important that it's regulated. I think we've let volunteering kind of free ride for a very long time, in the sense that, okay, everyone is their own chairperson and everyone can decide how much of their time they're going to volunteer. But with newer generation, I think that's becoming more and more difficult, in the sense that youth workers need to interfere, and they either need to stop or to encourage them, or to explain to them how to take care of themselves. So we don't necessarily, from the Advisory Council on Youth perspective, or Council of Europe, we don't necessarily work with volunteering as a subject matter, in terms that we don't create policies around it, we don't regulate it, but there are organizations that are doing it, and there are organizations that are completely devoted in terms of their mission and vision into elaborating and understanding volunteering better. So I think that the youth sector in Europe is completely reliant on volunteering. If we didn't have volunteering, then we wouldn't be here. A lot of things wouldn't exist, which speaks both about the lack of funding that organizations have, so they have to rely on volunteering, but it also speaks a lot about the passion that young people are ready and willing to put. And this is what I meant when I was speaking about the trends, this unconditional devotion and idealism and willingness to put ourselves on the front lines of the struggle until we burn out. So I think that would be my contribution for volunteering, if that answers it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea. A very interesting point about being burned out, because for Russia, for example, we are just keep on developing volunteering in the country, so we haven't started thinking about this negative part of this process. Yeah, so interesting trend. Okay, Zahat, so what strategies do you think your organization and other Pakistani NGOs should choose in order to somehow change the situation in the youth policy, to make it more efficient, to involve more young people in the kind of positive engagement? And another question for both of you is about preventing extremism. I know that for some countries it is a burning issue. So youth policy should also somehow concentrate on this aspect. So could you please comment on this, Zahat?
Yes, yes, thank you for this question. I would talk first about your first question, that how we are working and trying to engage with government. So as I mentioned, like we are working at two levels. One is with the young people. We try to build their capacity so that they can understand the language, because one of the major gaps that we have identified so far is that young people actually do not understand the language of the government documents or the government institutions. So it is very important that if we really want young people, that they need to convince the government, then they have to speak in their language. So that is the first thing, that we build the capacity of young people. And of course we do have now a good number of young people who now have kind of dialogues with the governments, not only verbally but also in written way. Why we chose this matter to build the capacity of young people? Because when I went to the United Nations first time in 2014, it was very difficult for me to actually participate in the negotiations. And although I knew that how this works and what is the procedure, but the language and then then how you can respond to it is very important, being a young person. So that is the reason behind that we are more focusing on this part. And then second is that we work with the parliamentarians and the government officials, because I think that is also very important, because many times the authorities or the government officials or politicians or whatsoever who are in power, they feel threatened when young people are asking questions, because as we all agree that young people are angry. So they take it as like maybe there is something hard coming out of this maybe coming out of this conversation. So that's why we try to work with them and make them understand that young people are not here to fight, but they just wanted to talk about their rights, and maybe they can contribute. Instead of that, we just want to criticize. It's more about that how we can contribute into that. And I would agree that I mean, partially the question that you asked from Andrea, I would also like to address that. There is a lot of volunteer work is going on in Pakistan, but unfortunately that it is like she rightly mentioned that many organizations, they are taking young people for granted, like they're taking them on board for free for a long time. And of course there is a lot of frustration, because there is less opportunities for young people in terms of jobs, in terms of other maybe skills. So I think there is a need to regulate this issue as well within the country, so that young people, particularly the marginalized groups, they can also get the opportunity equally within that. Regarding your second question, I totally agree. And of course, Pakistan is taking it very seriously, the extremism point of view, where young people are being involved. And we have seen a huge shift in last 5 years. That, I mean, now Pakistan has increased its not only policies and laws, but at the same time its implementation within the country, not only around I mean, preventing young people from extremism and terrorism, but also how they can engage young people who are already into it, and how they can be de-radicalized. I would also like to mention that we have a international conference this year in January, and it was international conference on role of young women and girls in countering violent extremism. Because we also feel whenever it comes to extremism and terrorism, mostly we focus on men and boys. But we always forget that the women and the girls, they do have a very significant role to prevent this whole process. So that is also very important. And of course, there is a huge shift now. But of course, there is a lot of work that needs to be done in the whole region, and of course in my country as well. Because why I'm saying so is because maybe the definition of terrorism is different for each region and each country. But when I am saying extremism, it's not just about maybe the big issues. It's also, I also consider that if there is extremism in terms of hate speech, or even having a as rightly mentioned by Andrea, that there is a huge, this we can see the movement of Black Lives Matters. So why it's there? Because of some reasons. And of course one of the element is extremism, and maybe it's like softer or the harder, that doesn't matter. So I feel it's important, and we as a young people really need to see. And of course social media has a very important role in convincing. And of course there's many reports that how young people from the Europe were actually participating into the whole process of the ISIS that we have seen in the last couple of years. I think there is a huge need that governments in our region, in my country, also need to regulate the social media activities as well. Although there's a very how to say thin line that in terms of having hate speech or extremism, but also freedom of expression and speech as well. So of course, many governments are using or abusing this line to silence the voices of activists as well. So I mean, it's very tricky, and it's very how to say controversial as well. So these are my thoughts on your second question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sahad. Okay, Farag, what is your opinion about all these things, like volunteering, best strategies, and preventing extremism?
First, I disagree with Andrea. Volunteering, I think, only burn out volunteers if they volunteer in fields that doesn't suit them. But overall, they gain experience that helps them after that. Later, I talk about Egypt. It's hard to find an internship with a salary. It's very difficult. So that volunteering is the only way that youth can contribute and can take a chance, that gain experience, and after that can find a job. That's the point of volunteering. For the point of youth policy, our EU strategy is to prepare training opportunities to youth and make them able to participate effectively in community after that and find a job. This year, we targeted around 2,000 students. We offer them a training in all fields. Just a second. We offer them a training in all fields like companies, factories, clinics, pharmacies, and other in the best places in the Egypt. Most of our trainings and partners give the trainees chance to get a job after finishing the training, and this is the main purpose of the training. They can get a job in the same place after finishing their training, and we found that a great chance because the problem of unemployment that I mentioned before. It's a huge problem, and the most effective problem in Egypt. So to find a solution for it, we give them a training and make a deal with the company to give them a work after finishing their training. Some places give the trainees salary, but not all places, and it is hard to make all places give them a salary. So we prefer here volunteering. They gain experience. After that, they can do what they need. They can find a job easily. On the other hand, anyone without experience in Egypt and South Africa, it's very hard for him to get a job. It's very hard. He must gain experience, and where he can or she can get experience, there is no way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farag. So there is one thing I want to add. So every year, Russia and Future Team organized the International Volunteer Forum that took place in Moscow, then in Sochi. And last time we invited a good trainer from Thailand. She concentrated more on, she was a speaker, and she concentrated on emotional aspects and some more personal things of volunteering, how each person should perceive volunteering. And she said one very interesting thing, that in order to volunteer, a person should be mature, and he or she should be happy, himself or herself. So in order to give something, you need to have something in yourself. So it was a very interesting thing. So when you are in a kind of bad conditions and you feel frustrated, how can you contribute to others? So that's just a case in point. So speaking about our, yeah.
I
Yeah,
wanted to
Andrea?
quickly make a comment on that because I think it's very relevant. I think it's connected to a question that Suzanne asked in the chat as well.
Okay.
I think it's interesting to look at who can volunteer. Absolutely. Volunteering, I don't think it's a very accessible thing because, as you said, if anyone decides to volunteer, it means that they should be in a position where they can afford it. We still face a lot of young people who, unfortunately, are, like have to prioritize getting maybe not so good quality jobs because they need the funds. So firstly, volunteering needs to be 100% cost-free. Like we cannot expect, many times we see volunteering being misused. So while I agree with my colleague and what he said that he disagrees with me about volunteering burning out, I think we see it as a trend in Europe, especially because volunteering is mismanaged in a very bad way. Many times volunteers are asked to pay funds. They are used as extra cheap labor force, like if you want to make a volunteer experience meaningful, it has to be it has to go in a hand by hand with what Suzanne has mentioned, and that is proper mentoring scheme. You need to have a youth worker supporting you. You need to have a clear developmental plan of what you're going to do through your volunteering experience. And only then you can speak that it actually it accommodates for the experience which you didn't have and which you need for the workplace. But many times it's used as exploitation, volunteering. And one of the reasons is because it's not regulated. And many people don't know how to work with volunteers. And volunteer, like when you decide to recruit volunteers, you shouldn't decide it from a position of, I need extra help and support, but you should decide to get volunteers because you want them to get a taste of the work you're doing, or you want them to, according to, on their own terms, engage in the work you're doing. So yes, absolutely. It doesn't always lead to a burnout. And maybe when I'm saying that, I'm speaking it from a personal perspective as someone who got burnt from very bad volunteering experiences, but there are bad volunteering experiences, unfortunately, still out there who don't contribute to any of the goals that were mentioned so far, but actually they just do all the opposite.
Yeah, thank you so much for this addition. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so the last but not least, the question about local NGOs. So I know that many of the guys who are listening to us right now, and many of those who will be watching the video afterwards, because we are going to post it somewhere, they run their own local NGOs in the sphere of volunteering or just in the youth policy to somehow improve the environment for youth. So what advice could be given to them, a kind of encouragement, something that can motivate them to keep on doing this? So you are kind of experienced people in the sphere. So what advice could you please give to them? Okay, Andrea, let's start with you.
Yeah. So when it comes to local NGOs, I personally see them as heroes. I really think that they are doing the most laborious work on behalf of all of us who are doing youth representations. They are kind of they're the ones who make young people or break them, and this is where the responsibility for work experience or for volunteering comes from. They're usually the first gate for young people to get involved into any public or community work or NGO work. So whatever experience they have in a local organization, that's what's gonna kind of follow them throughout their career, and it's gonna dictate their choices in the future. So as much as I love and admire them, I'm also aware how much of a responsibility they carry in terms of empowering young people and pushing them forward to get where most of us in this panel are now. I think that something to, and I think people may challenge that, and they may say, but why are we still talking about local organizations when we're living in a world that's becoming more and more global? And I think that that's absolutely true, and we shouldn't shy away from that, that today there are possibilities for young people to engage starting from a global level. So not everyone needs to go to the grassroots and to climb up like it might have been in the past. Those opportunities have opened up. But in my opinion, as we get more global, we also get more local. So I think that the two of them strengthen each other as they go along, because one cannot function without the other. Thus the need to continue keeping local and grassroots organizations very high on the priority list. I think that also grassroots organizations offer different accessibility opportunities to what global organizations may. With global organizations, funding is always a challenge. It's a challenge to bring all young people together, while local grassroots organizations have the young people at their reach. So they have this luxury that maybe other organizations don't, and they also obviously use it to their advantage and towards youth empowerment. Um, I think what advices I would give them is firstly, stay strong and stay committed. I think that a lot of local grassroots organizations are struggling with funding, which is a very legit struggle to have nowadays. However, I think that because of this recognition that as the global strengthens, the local strengthens, a lot of foundations have issued grant funding schemes specifically for local youth organizations. So in the European Youth Foundation, in the Council of Europe, we have a call for pilot activities every round, which means that pilot activities are usually funding activities from local youth organizations. So they have the equal chance to get funding as international youth organization. And in this way, we put them on an equal leverage. So I think that I would encourage them to not lose faith if after searching for a while, they struggle to find funding for their functioning. I think that there's a lot of opportunities open, and I personally, I mean, I can share my contact, and I'm happy for if there's anyone leading a youth grassroots youth organization to get in touch with me, so I can offer support there. I think that grassroots organizations have an incredible chance to embed themselves in local decision making. So while it tends to be very, very difficult to influence national or maybe even more global decision making, or especially the national one, local seems to be much easier. So that means that grassroots organizations have the chance to establish local co-decision making structures with their municipalities, for example, or with their town halls, wherever they're based, or with the city. They have a lot of chance at actually making a tangible change on the ground that they can see and get positive feedback from, which on the global level tends to be much harder because you're distanced from everything. So they could be working, for example, I would recommend all of them to check the European Youth Cities Initiative, so European Youth Capital, which is an initiative led by the European Youth Forum, and then it offers the title of a European Youth Capital to a city that commits most to advancing youth issues and youth policies for a certain period. I would maybe encourage them to seek creating a youth mayor shadower position in their municipality, so ensuring that there's a youth perspective in the decision that the municipality takes. I would also then maybe encourage them to join an international network so that they're kind of in tune and they increase the leverage of the voice they have in certain processes. So for example, a certain grassroots local organization could join a network that I know that's called United Network of Young Peace Builders, for example, if they're working in that field. And then together with other local youth organizations, they can participate in exchange of positive practices or advocating together towards larger decision makers that they're targeting, etc. So I think, yeah, I think my advices circle around three main areas. One of them being funding and just encouraging a local organization that funding is available. And from what I can see, more and more so. So do continue that search. I think the second one is around stronger embeddedness in local policymaking, which tends to be an easier avenue than national one. And the last one is staying connected with other grassroots organizations by joining international networks which work on the same topics as them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea. That's what we try to do in Future Team, is to somehow connect different local NGOs of the same topic so that they can work together on some different volunteering campaigns and something of this kind. Because like we are creating kind of platform for them for informal communication. Okay, so Farag, what is your perspective on this thing? What is your piece of advice to these local NGOs? Please turn on your mic because we don't hear you. Yeah.
Sorry. This time I totally agree with Andrea. The only words that can describe NGOs is that they are heroes. The programs created by NGOs really support youth in all sides of their characters by build self-confidence, leadership skills, and communication skills, and other aspects of character. Also, they learn youth about their rights, and this is a very important thing. The youth can know about their sexual rights, gender equality, and more about their rights from NGOs. Also, I see that without NGOs, the youth really lose their power. whatever what our participation in state and in the country, that's not compare with the NGOs. In the NGOs, we are the leaders. We are taking decisions. We are learning very much helpful things. We really make our characters by NGOs. So I really want them to continue to not lose passion to help more youth in their journey. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sahat.
Yes, agreeing with my fellow colleagues, I would directly go to the point that what the youth organizations in particularly should do in terms of Pakistan. I feel like there is a gap in terms of that we do not have a collected voice, and that is very important when it comes to advocacy, or to put our agenda on the table with the government officials. So that is one of the major thing. I mean, again, as I said, like I agree with what my fellow colleagues. I don't want to repeat them. So that is one of the points that young people and the youth-led organizations needs to come forward collectively, and we're trying to develop this National Alliance of Youth Associations in Pakistan, so that the youth organizations or the youth groups or even the non-registered youth organizations can also have their voices, because now the laws to register an NGO in Pakistan have been very strict, and it has now more how to say I mean procedures, and it's very long, and then if you do not have enough resources with you, it would be further difficult for you to get registered. And of course there is more scrutiny in terms of law enforcement agencies. So it is I think I would encourage all the young people who are trying to engage youth at the grassroots level, so that they continue doing their work. And it's very important, because when we started our work, we even feel like that maybe we are not doing enough work, or maybe it's not important. And sometimes you feel like that, working in countries like Pakistan. But the most important part is keep doing, even though it is not maybe very huge or very big, but we need to keep doing that, because maybe even if one person is getting inspiration out of your work, is I think that you should be satisfied that your work is paying off. So that's all from my side.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. It was very interesting. So I just checked the questions in the group chat, and there are 3 questions concerning unemployment. So it shows how people are concerned with this issue. So I somehow just combined the questions. So the idea that how can we, just ordinary people, solve the problem of unemployment in any particular country and around the world? And can we create a mechanism or a kind of scheme to support youth in creating jobs and support each other? So do you have something in mind to contribute to this question?
Should I start?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because that is very, I mean, I take it very, I mean, personal as well sometimes. It's because social entrepreneurship is very important. I mean, not only social entrepreneurship, but as an entrepreneurship is very important. I mean, I usually, whenever we do have discussions with young people within countries, so we always say like when we only make our mind to get a job, maybe we as a young people can also start creating jobs as well. Maybe we would not be able to giving job to so many people, but at least if we are going to establish a small business, it would also help not only you to progress, but also it would help other people to do so. So one is like we really need to support each other. There should be support mechanism for sure. And now I know that government, I mean in our region overall, they are trying to put investment into the entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial ideas. And young people really need to see that opportunity, so that they are not only looking for the job, but they are also creating the jobs. So that is one. Secondly, I think there is also need to not only create the mechanism, but also having a policy that not only the young people from the cities should get the benefit of that, but also people living in the rural areas, specifically countries like Pakistan, which has agricultural, agricultural centric country. We need to have more investment into that, because food security will be one of the major issues in coming years. Specifically, as we see in this pandemic, we have seen the very, heartbreaking situations in many cities in particular, but it is happening same way in villages as well. So these are the 2 points from my side on this subject, and it's very important as well.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have something to add?
Can I ask if you can just repeat the question? I want to make sure I understood right.
Yeah, sure. Just 1 second. So the question is about some kind of grassroots activities, a kind of scheme that can be created on this like local level to cope with the problem of unemployment. So what can be done?
I absolutely agree with what was mentioned already. I have nothing to add. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Okay, guys, so there are many comments in my personal chat that you wanted to add something to this or that idea our speakers mentioned. So that's your turn, guys. So if you want to add something, but please be very brief, because like I know there are many representatives of different regions, and it can be very interesting if you can make like small remarks on this or that topic that we discussed. It should be just 1 minute long. But please raise your hand first so that we can turn on your mic. If you want to add something or comment or to share your local perspective from the point of view of your country. Okay, Ahmed Karim.
Hi, how are you? I'm so glad that I'm with you guys, and I just want to add something. I'm from Iraq, and I just want to focus on one part, the people that they lived in the war condition, especially the youth people. I'm one of them. We face a lot of problems, especially to get over all these things that we saw, to get over all the, bad time that we went through in our lives. So now most of the people, they became so aggressive because what they saw, it's so painful. So we need also to focus on this part of people. We need to take their hands and rise up them and try to understand their needs. I travel to many countries. I give many speeches and all. Everyone used to cry in the other countries. Everyone used to, emotionally get attached to me while I'm speaking. But we are not finding anything on the ground that, applying on the needs that we are looking for. So I don't know. We are trying to, make a youth policy and all these things. But in the same time, we should just focus on this group of people because we need them. There's a lot of talented people. There's a lot of great people like living in these conditions, and they cannot do anything, to rise their voices up. So thank you so much. And this is 1 minute.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ahmed. A very important point. I don't know whether we can do something to help you, but be strong, guys. Okay, Rayan Zahid.
Hi, Paulina. This was a really great session, and just want to talk about one thing for a minute, and it's that. Oh, by the way, I'm from Pakistan. I grew up there, and what I want to talk about to this group is that I think a lot of time when young people want to take up more roles in governance, a lot of the times older people or the older generation would tell you that we don't have enough experience, that we don't have enough knowledge or understanding of how things work. But I would like to highlight, especially in South Asia, young people at this point in history have more information and more access to like experiences than our same people of the same age, maybe 50 years ago. And I think if someone ever tells you that young people just don't have the amount of knowledge or experience or even understanding of how things are, I would say that young people should not get dismayed. I think they should have complete confidence that they really do have an understanding of it, and that if given more time, they can understand even more. But on the baseline, we definitely have progressed much faster than any of the previous generations, and I think the youth should be confident in that, and then try not to get dismayed by what the older generations say. Just lead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, as someone iPad Pro 2019. I don't know your name. It's just very simple.
Hi, I am
Hi.
Jacob from Jordan. How are you?
Great, Jacob.
It's my first time to use the iPad. Always I'm using my mobile. That's why the name changed.
Okay.
At the beginning, I want to thank you all for this meeting, and it's very good to know how the NGOs or the organization that with youth works everywhere. And maybe here in Jordan, we can make if we are true and have an organization in the government, we can work easily. And now we are in the last steps to make future team in Jordan valid here in Jordan, because we make it as non-profit company. Here is you can't make an organization, you make it a company, but without profit. So maybe if we have good workers, we can make everything. It's not good always to say we have this problem, we have this problem. We will have a very bad feelings, and if we work, we can. If we want to work, we can't work good with this way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I want to tell you, and thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Please
I guess,
mute me again.
Okay, we will try. Okay, so yeah, so what you focused on is that positive feeling is a very important part of any success, and I guess Fahad Al-Abri is going to add something of this kind because he's like a champion in positive thinking. Fahad?
Yes, I mean, this is for me, right?
Oh, no, there is Fahad Al-Abri from Oman. Okay. Yeah, he just raised his hand. Yeah.
Hi guys, thank you for having me all here. I'm just gonna address two things. One, for Kareem, for the war zone areas, I do believe so much in enterprise and social enterprise. So please, if you find a way, want to support these people, will be nice to use this talent and to support them by branding them and to start funding their skills and their talent. And I'll be your first supporter if you want to do something for them. That's for you, Kareem. If you want to empower those talents, try to start to brand them. And that's like a social entrepreneur's step. And it could be a strong entrepreneur step to solve a problem. Because we are facing two problems nowadays. People are mixing up between business and entrepreneurship. And that's where the economic is struggling. The economic doesn't need more businessmen. The economic need more real entrepreneurs. And to be more precise, even social entrepreneurs are more valued than this. The second point, what I would really love to highlight mainly is me as someone who runs a social entrepreneur and also a volunteering environmental awareness initiative back here in Oman, in my country. Emotional awareness programs is really needed. Whether you guys so much into volunteering, not volunteering, looking at problems, looking at social media. If I will address 2020 this year as what it is, I will address it as the most year that a human being been emotionally abused. So I would love to see people really to start to realize their awareness, their emotions more. People have to know more about their emotions. You guys have to realize what you guys are empowering, because this is going to be connect to extremism. This is going to connect to the decisions people are taking. This is going to be connect to what you're passionate about. This is going to be connect to what change you want to do. So emotional awareness is very important. So sadly, our emotions, especially the youth, always been abused by a politician direction or a campaign or by a big company brand when a trend in a TikTok or an Instagram account or whatever it is. Those, before you start to dive into any decision you take. Make sure what are you feeling about and what you are empowering. Empowering is the key. So emotional awareness is everything. I think the biggest battle that we're gonna fight now for the next 10 years is our emotional awareness. And simply because everything, information we're getting it, we're very, very distant. We're keeping it from our screens. And even now we're talking and it's all through the screen. Anyhow, guys, I'm gonna keep it short. Emotional awareness. Kareem, come to me in private. Let's see what you have, my friend. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Fahad. So I guess we have time just for 2 more comments. So the comment from Aloysius.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so it's a great thing to be a part of this platform, and you know, I'm speaking from Liberia. Sorry. Okay, I'm speaking from Liberia. So I just want to appreciate every one of you concerned about youth empowerment. You know, youth work in the country. Youth played a cardinal role within every developing country, even in a country that is developed, because with the isolation of young people, you cannot have a vision to push forward as a country, because the young people are the future leaders for tomorrow. So to speak, as it relates to youth empowerment, it's a great thing. And one way I think we can start to develop young people in their area of careers is to start to build, you know, training centers for them. Like basically in Liberia, where I found myself, you know, a lot of young people are disadvantaged when it comes to so many things. Right now, one of the problems we face in the country amidst this pandemic is the issue about the e-learning program. How can young people get out there to start, you know, going back to school using the e-learning program? So what that means is that they did not get the training that they ought to have. All right. So most of them lack the skills of computers. Most of them don't know how to manipulate simple machines. So considering that, it creates, you know, unemployment for them. Even if there was a sector that they supposed to be getting employment, they don't have any more skills. So I think this platform is a unique one that we all can work together and share ideas about how young people can be empowered, starting with skills, you know, starting with skills. So if young people are skilled, that can work better. And in terms of speaking about a local volunteers organization, all of that, currently, you know, I work with for NGO called RTI and in the area of education. But I also have a little volunteer organization that I call Concerned Youth Initiative. So what we do there, we encourage young people to take advantage. You understand that? To take advantage of the opportunity, because one way you can get empowered out there is to firstly start from volunteering. And volunteering has a specific skills that you learn. And it comes from your mind, because once your mind has been made up to volunteer without pay, without anything, you have that spirit of courage to move forward. So a lot of young people are doing very well on this whole issue about, you know, sensitizing the communities about, you know, the awareness, letting people know about the social distancing, wearing of masks and all of that. So, you know, the organization is doing very well. So I want to say, you know, this platform has already reinforced my strength to continue to work with young people within my country, within my community, and to ensure that, you know, those things can be done. So basically, that's what I have to share for now. Thank you so much, Angela.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, guys, well, I guess we have run out of time. So our speakers, we have their own meetings after that. So let's move on to a kind of informal format. So those who want to keep on communicating and comment on the topic, please keep on doing that. But it's just a kind of informal session. So thank you once again to our speakers. It was a very great experience to me personally, and the idea that we have so many comments in the chat and we have still many questions, it shows that we will keep on working this format when we invite guests from different regions and we can see different perspectives. So once again, Andrea, Farag, Sahad, thank you so much for coming, a kind of this online meeting. So I hope that we will keep in touch and work together from now also on. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. So guys, if you want to keep on discussing the issues, you may do that. So we have more comments